3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, what's up guys? Let's do a little exercise and we'll incorporate voxel remeshing. So I get a lot of questions about this. So we have our sphere here and let's just make some little character really quick and then we can voxel remesh it together. So if you tap here, this is your scene menu. So right now all we have is a sphere and that's this sphere here. So let's just rename this head. Okay, so let's add, and we need to add a body. So let's add another cylinder. So now we have this cylinder here. Anytime you add a new primitive or a new shape, you have to validate it. And then it turns white, and then you can use all your tools over here on the right. So now we're going to use our gizmo, and that's our controller. So this will help you control everything. So we'll bring it down. And let's make it bigger. Usually I make it smaller, but let's make it bigger. And let's turn it to one side and take this little blue sphere and let's stretch it this way. And let's take the move tool. We'll make it a little bit bigger over here. Make sure symmetry is on. And let's just pull this side down a bit. You can turn it to the side and you can maybe stretch out the belly as well. I'll push the back in so he has a little bit of that curve in his little spine. Okay, something like this. So this is now the body. So let's tap these three and just call it body. Let's add another sphere and we'll use the gizmo. We'll move it over to this side, down. Let's hit mirror. So now we have two spheres and this will help us with our arms. So let's use the giant orange ring to shrink it. And then we'll move it up and over. And I think that's pretty good for now. Let's tap the scene. So now we have a mirror and we have our sphere. So we're pretty happy with our spheres, so let's validate. So now the sphere is white, and we want to keep it in the mirror for now. So let's select both of them, and then hit clone. So now we have double, and let's rename this one arms. This one legs. So we'll tap the sphere for the legs. We'll move this down, over, and maybe we'll stretch them like this using the little spheres. Let's stretch them a little bit this way. And then you can use the move tool and you can kind of just give them a little whatever you want. So something like that I think is cute. So we'll tap on the arms and let's just stretch the arms out a little bit as well. Okay, I want to kind of push down the top. I want the top to be flat and the bottom to not be flat. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, let's take the face. Let's use the move tool, or the head, excuse me. Let's push in a little bit on the head, just so that it's a little bit more flat. Okay, I think that's good. And let's add another sphere. We'll use our gizmo, move it up, back. We'll use the giant orange ring to shrink it. Actually, I was going to do something else, but I kind of like this here. kind of like this. So let's name this one antenna or antennae. Let's clone it. Let's name this one ear. Okay, so now let's take ear. We'll take the red arrow and move it over. We'll mirror it. Now there's two. Shrink it a little bit, and then we'll bring it down. Let's stretch it this way. And now let's just kind of add these to the head. You can use these rings to kind of rotate. It doesn't matter where you put these. I just think that they look cute. So we'll just put them on the head a bit. I think I like something like that. But you can also like put them up in the front. You can also put them in the front like this. Okay, I'm going to validate those, and I'm actually going to take move, and I just want to give them a little push so they have a little bit of a curve. And then I'll just move them back a little bit, maybe tilt them back. Okay, I like that. So now we have a cute little character. Oh, and I want to connect this thing, so let's add, so we have the antennae. We can go ahead and validate it. Let's add a cylinder. We'll take the cylinder and we can use our gizmo. We'll shrink it. Let's move it up. And let's press this little orange cylinder here and just stretch these. I think we can validate it now. We'll just shrink it with the orange ring, like so. We use the green to kind of make it a little bit taller. So we want something like this, but I'm going to use move and just give it a push to give it a nice bend. And now we use our gizmo again to just move it back. Okay, I like that. It's cute. And if you really want to be crazy with it, let's take antennae, clone it, and let's move this right to the base. So we'll just shrink it with the gizmo, and we'll move it right to the base. It's always nice to do little details like that when you can. So that looks good. And let's rename it antennae base. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces here. So with this mirror, we can go ahead and validate. We're going to have to rename it after we validate. So this one is ears, body, arms. We can validate. Legs. We can validate. So let's go to arms. But this is the wireframe. And when you come from other 3D applications, you'll hear people talk a lot about the wireframe. It can be very confusing for new 3D users, but essentially it's the geometry of whatever the shape is. So if you look here, you can see that the squares are a lot bigger. So the body is 6,000 vertices. So now if we look at this, there's a lot more squares. They're much smaller. So if we look at it, this one's 98,000. So there's a big difference. This is a little bit in the middle. So this is 12,000. 6,000 bigger squares, a little bit smaller squares, very small squares. So essentially that's what makes up your 3D shapes. This is very dense, and this is not. But I'm going to turn the wireframe off for now because I just want to talk about voxel remeshing. So voxel remeshing is different than join. So for example, we have the body and we have the arms and the legs. So I can join them, and now we just have this piece here. But they're not actually connected, they're joined, but I couldn't smooth these out so that they're together. I can't, you can't do that when you hit join. And also, you'll notice if you use move, it's just moving the arms. Or if I push the body, it's just moving the body. So they're joined, but they're not voxel remeshed together. So I'm going to undo. So they're not joined anymore. So normally when I'm making a character, you want to do a lot of, when you want to add detail, you want it to be very dense. So if we go to the wireframe again, let's just say we wanted to use a tool. So I'll tap on the stomach or on the body, and let's just use paint. So we'll use paint. So I paint on this, and you can see it doesn't look good. So let's paint on the head. We paint on this, it looks better because it's more dense. This 6000, not very dense, and you can see not very clean. So that's the mystery between high res and low res. High res, you can add more details. Low res, it's very difficult to add details. So voxel remeshing is a way to change this. So let's say I want to add details here. I can go down here and pull up the voxel, and you'll see the resolution. And I can move this, and you'll see that the squares get very dense, not very dense. Now they're really big. And back to dense. So resolution is a way to change this. And this is a shortcut down here. Also, it's here. Voxel and remesh. So let's say we go to 200. 200 is like a good median. It's a little high, maybe like 175 or so. That's a good middle ground. So right now you see these squares. And if I hit remesh, multi-resolution will be lost. That's okay. So I press OK. So we voxel remeshed it. Now the body is 1300K. So that's pretty big. So now when I use paint, the paint's a lot cleaner. So that's one reason to voxel remesh. Another reason, so let's say I undo. If we want to take the body, the arms and the legs, and we want it to be one piece that we can smooth together, then we want to voxel remesh them. So you just select them all, you go back here, voxel, and now you can remesh them. Let's remesh at let's just go to 200. We'll hit remesh. So now you can see that they're all joined. It's like they're soldered together. So I'll tap wireframe so that goes away. And now you can see, we'll use the smooth tool, and you can smooth them. And we want to have symmetry on, so we can just do both at once because it's symmetrical. So now you have one solid piece. But remember, right now it's 74K, so it's not too, it's pretty high, but it's not too bad. If we look at the wireframe, so here's our wireframe. So that's really all there is to voxel remeshing. So you can voxel remesh a single object or multiple objects, but you just want to make sure that they're objects that you want to be smoothed together. Turn off the wireframe. And you can't undo this. If you hit join, you can always do separate. Once you voxel remesh, then they're together for good. Okay, so I hit undo back to the separate pieces. And just a note, if you plan on 3D printing your sculpts, then if you join them at the end, all of these shapes are still going to be there. So that's why you may have heard that you need to voxel remesh your shapes together in order to 3D print properly. Because when you print them, you don't want all of these shapes to still hold, because sometimes resin can get stuck in pockets. So for example, if I take the stomach or the body, and I'll just go to blending and I'll turn this down. So if you join, all these shapes are still here. So they all are places where resin can get stuck potentially. And that's only if you print hollow. If you're not worried about printing, then don't worry about what I'm saying. I'm sure it's very confusing. But if you do, you can print hollow or you can print solid. So usually for my prints, they're better off if you print them solid or fairly thick. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to opaque. Well, there is something else I wanted to mention. So if you're manipulating something like, let's say, the arms, and you're doing a lot of things where you're pushing and pulling, and you're just doing a lot of shaping, eventually what's going to happen is the form is going to kind of break. You can see it sort of breaking. So whenever this happens and it gets really messed up, it's another opportunity that you can just voxel remesh it and it'll make it solid again. So just go here, voxel, and let's just remesh it around 175 or so. And you'll see that now it's solid. It's ugly, but it's solid. So now I would just, if this was the shape I wanted, I would try to smooth it out. And as you can see, 175, it's kind of decent at smoothing it, having it be malleable, but still having the ability to kind of smooth it out some. But of course, you might have to fix some of these things. You can flatten, or you can pinch or something like that if you wanted to make the crease stand out. There's lots of uses for tools and things like that. I don't know what I did to this poor character. So let's add a cylinder. We use our gizmo. We'll move it down. We can use this to squash it, and then let's make it bigger. This will be his little podium where he's standing. So I think that is pretty good. Let's tap these 3 dots, post subdivision up to 2, and let's just scroll this down until it's nice and round. 24 is okay. So now we'll hit validate. So now we have a nice little round floor. So let's go to our scene and let's name this floor. Let's take the legs. Let's use trim, rectangle. And now we're just going to make a box and we're going to trim the bottom part of these legs. Because if I hit X-ray, you can see that they go beyond, they go underneath. So we're using trim and rectangle. We'll just make a box. And you want it, you want it a little bit lower. You don't want it right at the edge. You want it a little bit below. If we hit X-ray, no more. Okay, so let's go to the head and let's make a mouth. So we'll use mask. So mask, you can see if you color, it's kind of like this dark color. So that's a mask, and we're going to use that to make a mouth. So let's make it a little bit small. Make sure symmetry's on. And we're just going to make a mouth shape. And then we'll color it in like that. It's a pretty good mouth shape. So now we'll hit invert, gizmo, and then we'll just push this in. looks good. So now we'll go back to mask and clear all. So now we have the body, we can see through the mouth, so we don't want that. So let's just hit front, trim, and also obviously you can control the canvas with this. So we'll just hit front, we'll use trim, but it's kind of like an awkward angle. So let's just use our lasso, and then we'll just draw around the part we want to trim, and then it's gone. You want to make sure you check the back to make sure you didn't cut through the back. Okay, it looks good. So here's my way of thinking. So now we trimmed the legs, we did the mask, and we pushed that in, and you can see that this isn't really smooth looking, but that's okay. We have the ears, the head, the arms, the body, and the legs. So I know that those are going to be one piece and they're going to be one color. So now is when I'll say, okay, so I have a lot of these details in. I don't really think I need anything else. The only other thing that I was thinking about, let's rename this body, is maybe adding some more spheres using Gizmo. We'll move it forward and down. We'll shrink. And if you wanted to do some little feet, some little feeties, you can do that. Just shrink it. And you can adjust. Maybe you want them a little bit bigger. You can do something like that so we have some little feet. I think that's pretty cute. Okay, so we'll go back to the shape. We'll just hit mirror, and then we'll hit validate. And now again, we have these two mirrors, so we'll just validate. We'll rename them feet. And then we want to go ahead and take trim, front, and we want to trim the feet because again, they're going to be below. So, oops, wrong trim. So we want to use rectangle. And we trim them just like this, right a little bit underneath. Okay, so that looks good. Ooh. Almost forgot. Oh, let's rename these feeties. Feet. So let's go to body. Let's hit add sphere. And we got to make sure that he has some buns. Everyone loves a nice pair of buns. So we'll move it over. We'll hit mirror. Let's move it in. Over. You can make them as big as you want. Maybe we'll put them out here, and then maybe we'll take the body, use move, and maybe we'll extend the body out a little bit. We can make the body a little bit wider in the back to support those buttons. Maybe we'll bring the stomach out a little bit. Maybe we'll bring this a little closer together. But as you can see, there's lots that you can do to sort of shape your character. Okay, let's see. Let's flatten these a little bit. I don't want them to be too... I don't want to have too much cake, because then it just gets crazy, you know? But I think that's pretty good. So you just have to manipulate, and you'll get better and better and faster the more you do it. Okay, let's validate. Let's go here, validate. I'm sure you're probably getting it by now. Rename, buns. I'm gonna do a quick save. Okay, so let's add another sphere, but let's add a UV sphere. And I've actually been practicing since I bring my sculpts over to Blender, and I noticed that when I use a UV sphere, they're a lot nicer looking than the other spheres. So sometimes for eyes, as you can see, I'm just reshaping the eyes with the gizmo, or the eye with the gizmo. Maybe we'll move it over here. Not sure how big I want the eye, or how far back in the head I want it. I'm not actually sure. Maybe we'll shrink it. And you can make your eyes however you want. Obviously very simple. We're just dealing with spheres. You can mirror to get your other eye. I think that looks all right. You can put them further apart, closer together. Kind of like that. That's kind of interesting. So we will just hit validate for now, and let's go and name the mirror eyes. Okay. Oh, I can't help it. I want to see what they look like small. Anytime that your gizmo is changed and you want to just move left and right or up and down, you can hit align. So that's just a little pro tip. I kind of like that too, actually. That's kind of cute. So maybe we'll leave it here. It kind of looks like Kirby, but not. Okay, so we're happy with the head, the legs, the buns. So we have the buns, the body, the earsies. What's the cylinder? What is the cylinder? I don't know what the cylinder is. Oh, the cylinder is the antennae. That's why you always have to label everything. We have the head. So we just want to select these pieces that we want to be together. The feeties, the arms, the mesh, which is the legs. So these we all want to be together. So I'm going to do a quick save. I have the habit of saving before I voxel remesh. So we'll just go here, voxel, and I'm going to remesh at like 215. So we remesh, and now it's one piece. So I'll take smooth, make sure symmetry's on, and I'll just smooth everything. Buns look great. Make sure you get his little feeties. Still kind of soft, so just be a bit careful when you're smoothing. And you could lower the intensity of smooth as well if you need. Kind of looks like a really chubby gingerbread man, but that's okay. So now I'm going to take the eyes and let's just, since they were a little low, we just want to raise them a little bit. I think that looks okay. Another cool little tip you can do is you can take drag, and let's say you want to adjust, make sure you're on the body. You can adjust the smile a little bit. So there's lots of things you can do to sort of give it a little flavor. Maybe we'll take move and just kind of bring this out a little bit. I kind of like that. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to use drag, and maybe I'll just drag out this part as well. That feels only right. I can have fun for days doing this kind of thing, so I think that looks nice. Or it looks interesting at least. So now I'm going to take smooth, and I'm just going to smooth out, even though we just kind of adjusted it, I'm just going to smooth it, because that's going to make everything a little bit more, it's going to keep everything soft and a little bit more organic looking. This is such a weird character. I love it. Okay, so now that we have that done, let's give him some little fingers. So let's use inflate. I love the inflate tool. You can kind of see where my levels are. Intensity is around 50. Radius is around 70. So we want to add a thumb. Let's do it around here. So see, I'm just going in a circle a couple times and then I'm letting off. And you can see it kind of brings out his little thumb. So if the thumb's there, let's have two fingers here. So one finger. And notice I just continually go in like a circle. Circle on top of circle on top of circle. And that kind of makes the hands. Now you'll notice they're very boxy. So if we use smooth, it's going to be too soft. So if you try to use smooth, you see you're going to lose them. So now is when I Voxel Remesh again. So I'm going to just do the shortcut down here. I'm going to Voxel Remesh this around 250. And you see they sort of change, the boxes get a little smaller. So now you can smooth. I'm still going to smooth softly, but we're not losing as much of the fingers. And sometimes I like to take drag. Well, let's smooth this a little bit more. Sometimes I like to take drag and just give the fingers a little tug on the bottom, maybe even the thumb. Sometimes you can make it small, and then you can sort of manipulate his little fingers so they're however you want them to be. See this? Like I want this to be more round. So I'll just take drag and just make it more round. I love him. He's so cute. Okay. Now I do feel like I need to bring this part of the face out a bit, so I'm going to use move. And I'm just going to move this out a smidge. And the eyes I might bring up a little bit just to make sure that you can see them nice and well. There you go, that looks nice. So I'm going to change his color because I just want something other than white. So I'm going to select everything. I'm going to tap this little color sphere over here. And I usually like some sort of brown. So something like that. I have my colors saved, but it's kind of just like a brownish color. And then just hit paint all. Okay, I think this looks a little nicer. So I want to give him some teeth. So for teeth, I'm just going to add a sphere. And then with your gizmo, we can go ahead and shrink it. And we'll shrink it this way. We'll shrink it with the big orange ring. And then we'll move it up. And essentially, this is pretty much going to be how our teeth are. So let's hit mirror and then move it over, and then we'll have 2. Kind of want the teeth to be a bit big. So when I'm doing teeth, I always like to bring them closer to the edge, and then I want to match the curvature of the mouth. So I'm going to curve them with the green ring, like so, so that they're kind of go along with the curve of the mouth. Okay, so now we have just one tooth here. We can validate this. This is the tooth or teeth. So now I'm going to clone that. So now we have another one. And then you can go ahead and add some more teeth. And just use your gizmo to move it in place. Okay, and you can also use move and drag to just kind of adjust them to be however you'd like them to be. I think I want the front ones to be a bit more flat. Okay, I like that. And what's cool is you can take any one of these, like let's say these top teeth, you can just clone them, use the gizmo, and just move them down. If you want to flip them, you can, but then you just have to rotate them the opposite way. You can clone if you don't want to bring the other ones down. Maybe we want to clone again, just because I love adding teeth to my characters. You can also move them around with this little sphere in the middle. It's kind of hidden there. But that's kind of like a free, moves them around any which way. I'm going to clone and then bring these up. So this will also have the same amount of teeth. Okay, so now we have some teeth there. I love it. But also remember, you don't have to do your teeth exactly like this. I'm going to join all these teeth. So then we have one. But if you want to go more simple, you can just hit add. We'll use our gizmo. You don't always have to do the detailed thing. There's always a simpler way that might look just as cute. So let's say we did this, and then we mirrored, and we did this. Just move it along the edge, kind of rotate it. And then you have something like that as well. And you can go ahead and paint it to match. But now you have 2 pairs of teeth we can validate. We'll validate this mirror. And we'll just name this one Teethies as well. So now you have 2 different types of teeth. I'll go ahead and paint these as well. Okay, I like the teeth, so I'm going to go ahead and validate this. Rename it. Nice. If you want to put a tongue in there, just do a simple sphere. Should suffice. So we use our gizmo, shrink, shrink. Get a better look in there if you want. Okay, I think that looks good. We'll go ahead and paint it. But just remember to name it tongue. You can validate it as well. So we'll do a quick save. And lastly, let's add some pupils to these eyes. So if we want to add pupils, you don't have to, but sometimes what I do is I clone. I take the clone and I shrink it, and then I move it up. And then you can position it however you'd like, but you have some interesting looking pupils. This is a crazy looking character. It's so odd looking. I think I might change the eyes. I think I want to take this, and I think I want it more flat to the face. I'm just kind of turning it. I'm just kind of messing around with it now. Let's take move. I just want to make it a little more circular, but maybe a little bit more flat on the bottom. It's kind of nice. And you can also use inflate. Remember we used inflate for the fingers? You can use inflate to kind of do something like this for the eyes, which is nice. You can take flatten, and you can flatten that and make it even nicer. See, it looks pretty cool. And now we can go to the sphere. We can add, actually, let's add another UV sphere, but let's drag it, long press it out of that mirror. And then we'll use our gizmo. We'll shrink, and we'll just move it right in place here. Okay, maybe we'll mirror it. We'll see how that looks. Maybe that looks a little bit better. Definitely looks better. So usually what I do when I have eyes like this, essentially you just grab one eye. So take the gizmo, and the eyes are very flat here. And see how this is obviously very spherical. So I like to flatten it, like so. And then just position it right on the surface of the whites of the eyes. So just take your gizmo and bend it back. You kind of want to hug them. You don't want them to be in the middle. You want them to be sort of close to each other, closer to each other, towards each other, I should say. So we'll just move it back. So now you see how this is kind of going in. So just rotate until you see that round. Let's take it off of a line. Okay, so now I'm just going to move it a little bit closer to the edge and down. So that should look pretty nice. And of course you can move them into the eye a little bit more. But you just want to make sure that there's no weird space like that. So I'm going to move mine down more until it's like right on the edge. I think that looks good. want to do something a little funky. I want to go like this. Push it in a little bit more and just see what that looks like. That's kind of interesting. I kind of love it. It's just a little different. It's a little something different. But I love it. Okay, so I think he looks pretty good. So let's just do a little bit of lighting. So I'm just going to go here at this little sun, turn off your environment, and then add your first light. You can tap on it and just tap 2. Or of course you can scroll this like this, but I just like to put it to 2. Okay, that looks good. Let's see what it looks like with post-process. So tap here, turn on post-process. Okay, here's my settings. I think everything else is off except for maybe these two, which are on by default, I believe. Looks good. So I'm just going to tap on this light and the gizmo because I want to just move it from the middle. So tap that little hidden gizmo there. I'm going to hit align and just move it over and up. And let's go back into our lighting. And let's clone this. And we'll name this rim. So now we're going to move this over. You see there's 2 of them. Down. And we're going to use the green ring to turn the light until you see a rim of light on his side. Okay. And we see it up here. It's a little high. So I'm just going to move the blue ring until it's right on this, coming from the side a little bit. There we go. That's perfect. So now let's take the rim, clone that, and let's rename that R2. So then we'll drag it over, and we'll use the green ring, and we want to put this on the other side. But not so, it doesn't have to be a rim. It can be a little bit more, maybe. I think that looks nice. And then we'll go back and we'll add one last one, but we're going to change it from a sun to a spot. And now you just move this spotlight around. I typically like to go above. Let's take it off of a line. And this cone is where the light is pointing. So you just want to adjust the cone with the rings. Okay, so we'll put it a little higher, like that. So now it's shining right on his face. And you see this little orange ring? You can make the cone a little bit bigger. I'm going to turn this light down a little bit. Okay, and now it looks good. I'm going to go here. I'm going to turn the environment back on. Of course, this is my own custom environment. The link is below. But usually you just want to bring your environment down a little bit. And last but not least, let's really make him feel real. So let's tap on the body. Let's tap here and go to subsurface. Let's bring it down a little bit. If you bring it up, if you go this way, you'll see you start to get very see-through. So we want to bring it down to like 0.16 or so. I'm going to do the same thing with the teeth. Go here, subsurface, turn it down a little bit. Looks good. And maybe with the antennae, let's go to the scene, clone. We'll go here, additive, always unlit. Let's bring the opacity up a bit. So now he has a nice glowing ball above him. Maybe we'll make his eyes white. So we'll tap this. You can make the eyes white. If you want to make it glossy, you can bring roughness all the way down. Maybe the teeth, the same color. You can tap the little pupils. Maybe those are kind of a dark orange, maybe a little bit rough, or they could be black. All right, and there we have it. You can change the tongue if you want. Maybe the tongue is a little bit pink. And then tap here. Well, first you want to save. If you want to do a turntable, you tap the little Nomad icon. I like to do 000 and turntable. And if you want to export your turntable, then just reset him. Tap this, and if you're using an iPad, you can set up your corners. I don't think this is default, but you can set up your hot corners. So here I pull it down, and if I press here, it records. So then I can just go back and hit turntable, resize it a little bit, and it's recording my turntable. So that's how I record my turntable in Nomad. And you can see it's a little stuttery, it's a little jumpy, but that's to be expected. Okay, so I'm going to hit the Nomad icon, and then I'm going to swipe down on my hot corner and tap record. Okay, I'll hit front again. And then when I export this, if you want to export and you want to upload it to Facebook or something, it's important to make it pretty big, like this. So then you go here, scroll down to render and screen, and then you can export your PNG. But it's important to make it big. When you upload on Facebook or any social media, you don't want to have a lot of space and then a small character. Make sure you crop around your character so everyone can focus on it a lot better. And even with those simple lighting I did, will make your sculpt look so much better. Lighting is very, very important. Go ahead and export this. All right, and that's it. So that's just a way that I wanted to show you a way that I think about voxel remeshing, when I use it, when I don't use it. Thank you guys for joining me. This was a fun little sculpt. So hopefully you learned something. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, let me know what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy, so if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again, keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.